Hey everybody, I'm Sara Wiseman. Today I wanted to talk to you about the idea of our soul circle. And by soul circle, I mean the primary relationships that we are involved in this lifetime, the souls that we have had karma with and continue to have karma with and probably won't complete karma with in this lifetime. That smaller group, usually family, sometimes love relationships and friend relationships, but usually primary relationships are family. And just looking at how all of these relationships, affect us and why they tend to be what I would call like the master lessons, the master teachers. So we arrive in here at birth. We drop in to a particular family, a soul cluster. And there we are, we say that we choose our families before we're born. And yes, we do. We're souls. We understand the karma we're here to complete. We drop into these families. We immediately pretty much, forget why we decided to drop into that particular family or soul cluster. And then there we are for the lifetime, ready to work stuff out. Soul lessons, if they were called soul pleasures or soul delights, that would be great. But they're called soul lessons, which requires that there is some learning, and often learning is accompanied by some struggle as we make our way from one level of understanding to a new, better level of understanding. So here they are, these souls we show up with, and we're going to have time to work our stuff out with. And the reason family is such a key component here, this idea of the soul circle as family, is because these are likely the people that you are with the longest in your lifetime. When you look at this idea of the mother and the father, even if you're estranged from those people, that's who you're born into. Many of you are going to be knowing your parent from your birth until their death. And so this is probably unless you're very close in age to your sibling, if you have one, it's going to be one of the longest relationships in this lifetime. Most of us don't meet any kind of significant partner until at least we're early adults. Many of us, meet them in midlife or beyond. And so this idea that who you know the longest, most likely is one of the souls that you have the biggest soul lessons to learn. So I want to just kind of look at this, and I want to look especially at the archetypes or the positions that these people have, the archetype or position of the mother, the father, the sibling, the grandparent, and then your own role as either a daughter or a son. These are the archetypes that circle around in all of these family relationships and not in your soul circle. And sometimes when we understand the archetype or the position or the aspect of the lesson, this can really help us out so that we're not expecting, one person in our soul circle to be one thing when that's not even the archetype that they're meant to hold. They can really release a lot of tension that way. So let's just look at a couple things. First of all, if you're not getting along with your family, your primary soul circle, super common. Remembering that karma, this idea of having karma with someone, karma is not any kind of curse. Karma is the definition of karma, as I use it, is soul lessons learned over time. And time not meaning just this lifetime, but all the lifetimes we're going to have. And looking at, again, this idea of the positions, who will play what role in this lifetime, what soul lessons will be undertaken, and what soul lessons will be completed, if any. Now, we do have karma with everyone we meet, even if it's just the most random meeting. Even you and I, if you're watching this, we have karma together at some level. Every single soul has karma with every other soul. And yet, when we talk about family, this container, the family circle, the primary soul circle, the souls you'll first meet, the souls you'll be raised with, the souls you'll know for a lifetime, a culture that you're going to identify with, at least at the beginning, a lineage that you're part of, and a biology that you might belong to. So we're going to look at sort of some of these factors as we go deeper. Lots and lots of times, family is not safe. The primary soul circle, the primary soul cluster, the main relationships are not safe. And so this is very trying, but this is where the soul lessons begin. The place, the home that was supposed to be safe wasn't. A lot of us have been through this. The people who were supposed to be safe weren't or aren't. Again, this is a great tragedy, and yet here is the place where we begin to do this work of releasing our own understanding and moving beyond the unsafe, the unkind, the abusive, and so forth. We release ourselves from that, and in doing that, we release ourselves from the pattern. And again, it's hard because we get so used to the dysfunction. We get so used to the dysfunction that we don't even know it's dysfunction, and yet, finally, as we become adults, we can sort of look at it differently with different eyes. So I want to just sort of look at this idea of who the karmic archetypes are. And so here we go. It's mother, father, sibling, relatives, grandmother, grandfather, daughter, and son. Now, remembering that everyone begins as a daughter or son, and you might, change your identity later and play a different role, but everyone begins as a daughter or son. And many of you are mother or father or sibling. Some of you are grandmother or grandfather, even as we're listening now. So understanding the archetypes lets us see what we're doing. And so the role of the mother, for example, is very important. I want to go back to this a little bit. I lost my place, but the role of the mother is to nurture. So the soul lesson begins if you have a nurturing, loving mother, or you don't. Either way, there's going to be soul lessons for you there. The role of the father is to protect and to lead. These are the traditional archetypal roles. If your father doesn't do that, right, then you've got some soul lessons to learn. The role of the sibling, we think that we are the same as our siblings, but we're not. Our siblings are merely souls that we often share biology with. And our siblings are souls that we are dropped into the same container, the same family container. We might be completely different from them, or we might be very similar. It's not really important, but the main thing is that we will be in the same timeline of events and most likely have a very different interpretation of what happened. We could even be twins with someone and see a particular event or crisis in the family and have completely different interpretations. So the sibling is a witness to whatever if you have a sibling, your sibling is a witness, or if you are a sibling, you are a witness to your sibling, archetypally. And yet you witness the event, the dysfunction, the abuse, or the love and the nurturing, you witness it, and yet you interpret it differently. Grandparents, the grandmother is the mother of the mother or father has a different view on how the souls are progressing from birth to death, has a different, longer view of the ancestry. Grandfather holding the father, protect and lead, and yet again, maybe fulfilling the role or not. And so as we kind of look at like all the expectations, we look at all the expectations, and when we see the archetype and when we know the archetype and we apply that to our own mother, father, sibling, grandparent, grandmother, relative, and then we look at our own view as daughter or son or whatever you're identifying with as now, it can just become very clear why the family, why this primary soul circle is such a fantastic training ground for learning these these soul lessons. Yes, not soul delights, not soul pleasures, are soul lessons. So what I'd like to present to you is that families are notoriously tricky. Even if they're super loving, there's still a lot of miscommunication. And there's some ways and techniques that I use that a lot of you guys have learned, where you don't have to have. You want to heal the family circle, you want to heal the soul circle, you want to get past these karmic lessons. And so it's going to take some kind of contact with the other family member. But sometimes it's not safe, or sometimes the level of communication is so dysfunctional that there's got to be another way. You don't want to have contact and you don't want to have conflict. And so with no contact and with no conflict, how do you create change in the energy? So one thing to know is simply by holding the intention for healing for yourself, for your other family members, your soul circle members, simply by holding the intention for healing and being willing to allow healing, change has already started. The next is in working with soul to soul communication, which is one of the things I teach. You as a soul, the other person as a soul, you are connecting to that part of them as opposed to connecting to their mind, ego, personality all being one thing. You're connecting from one soul to another and saying, look, we've been around this block a lot of times, many lifetimes. Here we are still working on the same karmic lesson. What can be done here? What will open things up so that we can both expand? And what's very interesting is sometimes when we work with soul to soul, we might think in our own minds, nothing's possible. They're such a jerk, or I'm such a jerk, or all the dysfunction, or so much trauma, so much drama, it's unsafe. And yet we get to this place and things do change. Things just open up. And this is because we're adding in you, the other soul, and this idea of collective soul or oneness or the divine or the universal light. We're adding that elevation of vibration in. And this takes us from our grouchy, awful human selves sometimes and allows us to work in a really different way. So in this particular focus of you working with the soul circle as archetype, it allows you to get a different viewpoint. You just are not just like into it with your sister or into it with your father. You're disengaging and looking at like, wow, my soul chose this. What's that about? Obviously, this whole situation is completely stuck and dysfunctional. Maybe the goal is not healing. Maybe the goal is not coming to cooperation. Maybe the entire soul lesson is meant to disengage and detach and to become free from this particular karmic circle in a lifetime. And so understanding the archetypes, understanding what what you're learning from these archetypes or what you're learning from this situation in this lifetime, and then working soul to soul and also with your guides to sort of put things into divine perspective as opposed to human perspective, and seeing what the infinite, eternal part of you would like to say about the situation. If you're interested in this, learning more about this, I offer lots of resources. Hope to have you studying with you and have all of us as the bigger soul circle, not the family, but the bigger soul circle, working on our karma, working on our clarity, and working together to move towards more expansion and more love. I'm Sara Wiseman, and you will always find me at sarawiseman.com.